G'day and welcome to the Lighthouse Online and Lighthouse Podcast. We're continuing a conversation here in our current series, The Power of You. You've been watching Pastor Paul share some inspiring thoughts around how God loves to partner with us. And we're going to continue that conversation here today. I'm here with our youth leader, Nick Farrell.
Hello.
And we're looking forward to getting into some important questions, so stay tuned. Oh, welcome back. Of course, this is brought to you today by Escarpment Media, Illawarra's premier video production service. And we are here in the deluxe foyer of the beautiful Station Venue and Function Hire building. Why don't you book your next event in our venue here? You can check it out on adifferentlight.com.au. But we're going to get into it. I'm here with our awesome youth leader, Nick Farrell. Mate, we know of you, but I want to get to know you a little bit more. So we're going to do a quick fire round of questions. And
Awesome.
It's important for the viewers at home to answer these as well.
Fire
so
away.
are you ready?
Yes.
These are 15 questions. And I need you just to give me your intuitive responses to them. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Are you guys ready? Here we go. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Excellent. Beach or mountain?
Beach.
Good. Fish or steak?
Steak.
Interesting. Nike or Vans?
Nike, obviously.
Please. All right. Let's get to the meaty stuff.
Okay.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Thank goodness.
Obviously.
Jedi or Sith?
Sith.
Whoa. Dude.
Everyone's got a dark side.
Isaiah or Jeremiah?
Isaiah.
Cool. Sunshine or rainy days?
Sunshine.
Dragons or unicorns?
Dragons.
Please.
Unicorns don't breathe fire.
Mumble or trap?
Trap, but only around Christmas time.
Okay. Supercar or muscle car?
Muscle.
Nice. Narnia or Lord of the Rings?
Movies, Lord of the Rings, books, Narnia.
Interesting. Faith or works?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I want to say faith, but I think my internal is saying works.
Both, bro. Boardies or footy shorts?
Boardies.
Nice. Maple and butter or lemon and sugar?
Oh, it depends on the day. Probably maple and butter more often.
Excellent. All right, good. I feel like we've got to know you a little bit more, so we can get on with things. Look, Pastor Paul's been teaching us this thought that we can actually think about what we think about,
Yeah.
and that will empower our living. It'll help grow our faith. It'll help us understand what we're here to do. So I want to ask you the question: when has thinking about what you think about moved you from anxiousness and worry to being stable and confident and sure?
Yeah, it's a great question. That's pretty much the main part of my personal story. As a young kid, I was a very anxious person, very shy and very scared a lot of the time. So much so that my parents tried to kind of push me out of my comfort zone, and they were trying to get me to just simply ask to get a cup of water from the little 14-year-old rugrat behind the cashier register at Macca's, and simply asking for a cup of water was just too scary, and I'd just hide behind my dad and cry my eyes out. And I'd spend more nights either in the bathroom sick or trying to fall asleep on my parents' floor because I was just too scared of my own room, too scared of the dark, too scared and too anxious over the day that's
You were
about to
held
come.
captive by that emotion.
Yeah, it was a very strong, scary moment of my life. And it all kind of shifted when I was the age of 7. My parents were pastors at the time, so I always knew about God. But at the age of 7, it was my decision. And I made the decision to become someone who believes in God and wanted to be free from that sort of struggles in my life.
Wow.
And I'd love to say that in that one moment I was a changed person and I was free of my anxiety. But that's not how life often works. So instead, I started probably about a 5-year journey where through the power of God and through the teaching of my parents and making choices to push me out of my own comfort zone, I had a complete change in personality. And now I'm sitting here as someone who's more confident, who's stronger and just able to take what has life got to throw at me.
Tell me about how identifying and naming the emotions that you were feeling helped you move through them to a place of confidence. And
Well, as I said, I was pretty young at the time, but my parents were the ones that identified that what the emotion I was feeling was anxiety. And they did a great job at not allowing that emotion to be a part of my identity either. You know, I wasn't an anxious person. I was a person who struggled with anxious emotions. So from that, I was able to identify and capture that this is the emotion I'm feeling.
Yep.
You know, this is anxiety. I'm scared at the moment, but it says in the Bible that I don't have to be anxious about everything. Instead, I can give it to God and pray about everything. So every time those feelings would come back up, you know, I'd sit there, I'd end to pray, give it to God and say, this is not who I am. I can get through this. It's just temporary.
Right.
And this is the emotion I'm feeling now. So there's something great about acknowledging the emotion, but not giving it that much validity in our life.
We love Brené Brown around here, don't we?
Sure.
And Brené, if you're watching this, come and hang out with us. We want to talk to you and learn from you. But she says something great. She talks about how if you don't name your emotions, they hide. And they kind of like run amok in your soul. That's an Australian term, Brené, if you're watching. But if you don't name your emotions and call them out, they actually hide and kind of stir up trouble in your soul. So you have learned firsthand that being able to name them, identify them, and know them helps you to know yourself. You can then think about why that emotion's there.
Yeah, definitely.
And then take some actions to relieve yourself of it, but also to kind of help build you up and go like, actually, I know what this is and I know how to move forward.
And it's a constant thing now. Like, you know, it's been many years now and I don't struggle as harshly as I did with my anxiety, but I get to be in a place where I can think about what I think about.
Right.
And I analyze now, you know, I have all of these beliefs in my life from my parents raising me, from the environments I was in, even just from watching TV at an impressionable age. So whatever I heard, therefore it must be true.
Yes.
But now I'm in a place where I get to take a step back,
right,
look at my beliefs, analyze them and say, you know, is this actually truth? Does it align with what the Bible says? And do I want to continue believing in this?
Right.
And I get to go through this process of saying, this is the emotion I have. This is the man that I want to be. Do they align? And do I want them to align?
You mentioned what the Bible says before. We who read the Bible know there's a famous letter in the Bible called Romans, this ancient letter from the first century that was written to people who believed in Jesus that dwelt in the area of Italy in the first century. And there's this incredible phrase in that letter that talks about not conforming to the patterns of the world, but being transformed by renewing your mind.
Yes.
So what you're talking about there, renewing your mind, is that the same thing?
100%.
The process you've
renewing
talked
your
about?
mind is just the idea of, you know, fixating our thoughts on the good stuff, fixating on the thoughts of the people we want to be. Instead of worrying and fixating on our failures, we get to shift our perspective into the future or who we want to become, focusing on the positives that we want to become in life and not worrying about our own negatives. And as like we all know, your body follows where your eyes are looking towards. You know, when you're driving or riding a motorbike, all those sorts of things, your body is going where you're looking towards. And we want to fix our eyes and focus not on what we do have or not on the bad stuff in our life, not on the negative emotions, but focusing on the good, focusing on where we want to be, focusing on becoming a good dad, where we're going.
Yeah. And of course, Pastor Paul talked about that last week with the 1 degree of change. We don't have to have these lightning bolt number 10 moments out of our life, but if we just make small adjustments, inquiring of God. I've done some reading. It's very dangerous, I know, for me to do that, but I've done some reading and I've learned that mind in the actual letter in the original Greek is a word called nous, which kind of is literally translated to knowledge, but more like transliterally means like mindset or worldview.
Right.
And so what Paul is encouraging the readers to do is to analyze the way that they see the world.
Yeah.
And to inquire of God about that.
Definitely.
And it's not just like a do it once and then you've arrived. It's this kind of like continual process of living in a posture where you're inquiring to God about, God, this is the way I see the world. Is it the same way you see the world?
Yeah,
is there ways I can develop? And there's this kind of like thread of humility in it. So I've got a question for you. What's the link between renewing your mind and humility?
I think you can't renew your mind unless you come at it with a humble state.
Right.
Like if you're walking into
Drop the ego.
if you're working into the workforce, your life at all, and you believe wholeheartedly that what you believe is true, then there's no room to change your mindset. There's no room for renewal.
You're going to be willing to be wrong.
Exactly, yeah. So I like to walk into every scenario, like, the only thing I'm 100% certain about is I'm not 100% certain about anything. I have my beliefs and my values, but there's always room to be wrong. And coming into that world view with an understanding of this could be wrong puts me in a humble position where I'm ready for God to teach me something new.
Right. It makes me think of the stories in the Old Testament of the kings, King Saul and King David, right?
Great
If you put these guys, if you put a list of their accomplishments and their failings on paper, who would you say was the worst king?
Oh, by human standards, I'd definitely say David messed up bigger than Saul.
Right. So Saul was had an anger issue. He was maybe a little lazy. David was an adulterer, a murderer, a thief.
Yeah.
He ate he broke the religious rules of eating the showbread off the table of their temple. So his list of wrongdoings is significant.
Yeah.
But the difference between what that picks up in the story of the Old Testament, the difference is that David continually came to God in this humble posture of inquiry. It's like, search my heart and know my ways is one of the songs he wrote. So it's an important thing. In fact, Romans kind of this is the description of a true and proper act of worship
100%, yes.
to God. So the best thing we can do for God to let him know what he's worth to us is to humbly inquire of ourselves before him.
I'd even go as far to say as that's the process that we take to ensure that we're becoming more and more like Jesus.
Okay. So that's the way of following Jesus. It's just humbling ourselves before God. So why does an all-powerful creator being that presides over the universe, this is our image of God, why does he want to engage in, and partner with people to do that? Why wouldn't he just make robots that do everything he wants us to do perfectly?
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the whole messages of this Power of You series we're looking at. Paul's mentioned in an earlier message of this generation before us who were always talking about all you need is the power of God. And when you connect with God, everything gets better, which is partly true. The world is still kind of damaged. It doesn't work off justice the way we want it to. So when we partner with God, everything doesn't get better, but it does provide everything with meaning, both good and bad.
Right.
And I hear so often this next generation coming up, and they're being told that, as long as you work hard, you'll achieve everything you want in life.
Yeah.
Again, a partial truth. Not everything works the way that it does. But I believe when we partner with God, he's giving us the power and the energy that we require to do what we're asked to do.
Right.
And he does this because, right from the very beginning, we were created to be in relationship with God.
Okay.
The partnership between us and God is less about what's going to happen and more the fact that we get to be in a relationship with God with a greater purpose.
Yeah, cool. I love to do me some reading.
Oh, yes.
I want to ask you a question. I want to point you towards something that I think captures this point really well. So I asked you a question earlier. Do you like Narnia or Lord of the Rings better? Mm-hmm. And you said Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah.
And Narnia books.
Yes.
Fly, you fools!
What's the connection between Narnia and Lord of the Rings? Do you know? You follow the threads of...
No, I got no idea.
Written by different guys, right?
Yeah, pretty sure.
So the original stories. Narnia was written by C.S. Lewis.
Yes.
And Lord of the Rings was written by
Tolkien.
J.R. Tolkien, right? Did you know they were really good mates?
I did not know that.
So they used to get together in a pub on a Friday afternoon after university, and it was like they had this writers club called the Inklings.
Right.
And it's where they would scribble down on paper their ideas for stories.
Yeah, okay.
And so Narnia and Lord of the Rings were birthed around this table in an English pub.
Yeah.
And C.S. Lewis actually wrote a book to J.R. Tolkien. He dedicated the book to J.R. Tolkien. This cool story. It's called The Screwtape Letters.
Right.
It's this really creative piece of satire where he he writes this collection of letters from a devil called Screwtape.
Right.
And he's writing to his nephew called Wormwood. Okay. So
Okay.
you got to go with the humor in this and not take it too superstitiously. And it's like the older uncle is trying to teach the younger nephew how to tempt humans in a better way,
Right.
and get them out of their relationship with God. So they refer to God in the book, but they refer to him as the enemy, right? Because
Right.
they're devils. But
Yeah,
it's
okay.
this satirical masterpiece. And he writes this to J.R.R. Tolkien with, you know, a bit of tongue in cheek to encourage him in his faith.
Right.
Here's one of the key opening themes of the book, is that they're describing what it's like to be in a relationship with God.
Yeah,
So
okay.
the person that Wormwood has been given to tempt has just newly become a Christian.
Okay. Yeah.
And his uncle is saying to him, now's the time to really go to work on this guy, because he's in love with the idea of God. He's in love with being faith, but actually it's going to get to the hard work part.
Yeah.
And that's when to change his mind. And he uses this example of like, this occurs when the boy who reads the enchanted nursery of the stories of the Odyssey settles down to actually learn Greek.
Yeah.
And it's like there's this element where God hands us over to let us do the work of becoming a Christian on our own. Like, it's like the power of you stuff that Paul's been talking to us. He wants us to be empowered to live life out of our own self. And it's brilliant. He goes on to say, the enemy takes this risk because he has a curious fantasy of making these disgusting little humans into his free lovers and servants.
Right.
And then he goes on to say that the enemy, or this is God that they're talking about, desires their freedom so much, he therefore refuses to carry them by their own affections and habits to any of the goals that he has set before them. Instead, he leaves them to do it on their own.
Right.
And then Wormwood goes on to say, this is our opportunity to tempt them and get them off. But also remember, this is our danger. For if they get through an initial dryness of doing it on their own successfully, they become much less dependent on their emotions and much harder to tempt.
Right.
And so it's like this if you can picture the narrative, it's like this old uncle devil trying to teach his younger nephew how to tempt well. And he's saying, once people understand that God wants to partner with them in their journey of faith, and that they actually can bring their own talent and intelligence and passion to their faith in God, they're almost untouchable after that. They live lives of powerful, dynamic faith to God. And so it's a great way of kind of collecting that story. So how do you continue to grow in this? Like we've outlined that it's in humility, that it's continual, that it's part of God's plan for us to grow in faith and to bring our own sense of self to Him. How do we get better at it? You've got a great story of being on your dad's shoulders.
Right. Yeah. No, like I think it was 3 weeks back, Pastor Paul was talking about our Venture League program, you know, our extraordinary giving in designed to reach our community for not only this generation, but the next, and to build up our local church for generations to come. And he was saying how, you know, we're standing on the shoulders of the previous generation, and this is an opportunity to help set a new foundation for the next generation to stand on our shoulders. And it reminded me of, you know, being in the pool with Dad, and I'd stand on his shoulders and he'd like jump up and I'd leap at the same time. I was able to get like really high for like a split second. You feel like you're flying. You're able to reach way higher than if you were just sitting on his shoulders. But we've also got like the flip side. There was this youth game I played many years ago where you have a team and they all have to be on the same piece of paper.
They all fit into a small spot.
All fit in a small spot, and it goes smaller and smaller. And what this team decided to do was just set up a ladder of people. So we had the big youth leader on the bottom, then a year 18-year-old leader, then the year 10er on top of him, and then a year 6 kid is climbing this ladder to sit on their shoulders. We've got like 4 people high.
Right.
It looks ridiculous, but it just triggered this idea in me that, you know, we can set up the next generation and just fling them up really high, and they'll be able to achieve something really great, but it's temporary. When instead, if we teach the next generation to be those disciples who create disciples, then we get to create a sturdy ladder of generation upon generation that are able to reach higher and for longer and have this stability. But the only way that together we can have a greater impact on the world is if the bottom layer continues to get stronger.
Right.
So when we disciple the next generation, let's not just, get them to be going really well and then let them go on their own way. We have to continue to strengthen our relationship with God. We have to continue to renew our mind and question our worldview and our mindset as we go.
Yeah, for sure. So that we can continue being strong for them. Discipleship's a big conversation around here at Lighthouse.
Yes.
And we're like all in on discipleship. We want to see a whole church here that has somebody to look up to and somebody that that's following them as well. Like everyone in Lighthouse should have somebody that they're following, and then somebody who's following them in life, in faith, in all that thing. If you want a great resource to understand a little bit how to disciple anyone in anything, Paul Clayton Gibbs has written Talmudim. It's a fantastic guide, a practitioner's guide in how to do discipleship well. I recommend that to anybody. We use it around here at Lighthouse a lot. It's a great resource. Nick, we've covered a lot, mate. Discipleship, renewing our mind, being humble, owning your emotions. It's been a huge conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that you were here to do it with us, mate.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a good conversation.
Love it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you found it meaningful and you'd like to discover more, I encourage you to do that by connecting with us. But of course, all of this is impossible without first following Jesus. And the Bible's really clear about how to do that. It says in Romans 10:9 that if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, then you'll be saved. We want to encourage you to and invite you to take that step of faith with us and then engage with us as your local church. You can stay tuned. Pastor Elise is going to talk through all the details of how to do that shortly. Bye and God bless.
If this is your first time with Lighthouse Online, we'd love to say hello. So you can click that connect button and one of our team will be in touch with you during the week. At Lighthouse, we love to pray and we would love to be praying for your family this week. You can click on the connect button and tell us how we can be praying for you. Thank you for your regular and generous giving. It's because of families like you that we can continue to love and serve our community. The ways to give are on the screen now. There's no better time to join a Connect group, a great way to grow in faith and in friendship. If you'd love to join a Connect group, you can click on our Connect button or send Zane an email. Our Lighthouse Kids resources are updated every week on the website. After you finish here, why don't you check them out with your family for our latest episode. Lighthouse Youth is happening every Friday night during the school term and have their Connect groups through the week. If you'd love your young person to be involved, follow the social media handles, they're on the screen now. Lighthouse is gathering every week at the station and at the Woolshed, and you can watch us here online right through the week. Thanks so much and have a great week ahead.